Good morning. You know, I was told by a member of my team, Jod, that's not really a sport coat. Um, and then she's like, but you're a designer, so you can get away with that. We'll see. The jury's still out. All right. So when I joined Oracle Energy and Water, I knew that I was embarking on a journey into an industry in urgent need of transformation, namely to move from the management of access to resources to building long-term relationship and behavior change through customer centricity. This is obviously no small feat. And as someone with a background in design thinking and innovation, this had me thinking of exploring new methodologies that I could bring back into our practice that would help me to, and our teams, to think boldly and more further out, to think in futures. Well, it turns out that futurism is actually a practice with a discrete toolkit. You can think of it as a sibling to design thinking, but with a specific focus of piloting scenarios and hypotheses that are no earlier than 10 years out. So I'd like to share with you some thoughts and principles of futurism today with the hope that you can go back to your teams and bring these ideas and help us articulate the preferred futures that we all seek. So Oracle Energy and Water has invested in an ecosystem of dynamic capabilities. Mike Ballard mentioned the Innovation Lab, but also our own product design team. We are really focused, I'll even say obsessed, with customer needs. And we are constantly mining the market for opportunities from those needs, so we can bring insights into the product development process. So we encourage you to reach out to us directly to learn more about our design services and capabilities. Okay, the future has no facts associated with it. We can either just surrender to destinies in which we have no agency, or through imagination, systematically and collaboratively invent the future that we want to see. I think of the future as a blank canvas for applied optimism, a place for where our best selves can show up. Now we know that if we have to scale renewable energy 6 times faster, we're going to have to do more than business as usual. And this is where futurist practices can really help us. So what is futurist thinking? It's definitely not a philosophy. It's a discrete practice oriented around 3 distinct activities. Foresight. This is the practice of identifying signals. Roger, yesterday talked about how the industry is moving more to an outcome-based approach from total kilowatt hours. What would have been the signal to suggest that pattern was emerging? Second, we have insight. This is the practice of extracting opportunities from signals so that we can build greater provocations into the future state scenarios that we want to galvanize people with. And finally, we have action, a way forward. And that way forward is it's really necessary for it to utilize things like visualization and storytelling and human-centered principles to bring that to life. And this is where design thinking and futurism can overlap. In short, futurist practice is about making sense of new things, a new law, new ways of living and working, so that we can understand what's meaningful or what's going to be meaningful in the future. It's a way to invent things that don't yet exist. And it's a way to be both strategic and creative. So, let me give you 3 quick examples of futurism in practice. These are really more like signals. And I'm going to give you some questions to ponder. 1, United Nations just unveiled a new design for a floating city that would withstand Category 5 hurricanes. The intention is to build more resilient cities. So how might a signal like this impact energy solutions and even challenge the notion that human beings can only settle on land? Two, recently scientists have said that growing food from animal cells has decreased dramatically. In 2017, a startup called Memphis Meats unveiled viable prototypes of cell-cultured chicken and duck. Well, how might a signal like this impact our agricultural resources? Finally, there's a homeless encampment in South Berkeley that uses solar-powered grids to empower the encampment. If the camp has to move due to regulatory or policy reasons, the mobile infrastructure moves with it. Now, these panels were provided by donors. Well, how might a signal like this impact how we think about equal access to energy resources and affordability? So quickly, I'm going to talk through 5 key principles of futurism. How might we spend less time predicting futures and more time inventing them? Often, we're trying to predict a single event divorced from the broader ecosystem or the context in which it lives. We're focusing on the waves, the things you can see on the surface, but not the tidal forces underneath. You know, maybe many years ago I could have predicted that Facebook would be a way for people to connect digitally. But I might not have contemplated the unintended consequence of seeing how it might impact perceptions of truth in an age of decentralized media. So the future is a canvas for structured imagination using the Foresight Insight Action framework. Signals are the basic medium that futurists work in. Signals are to futurists what words are to poets, what code is to programmers. They are our modeling clay. And my favorite definition of a signal is this: a specific example of the future in the present. Signals exist. They are real. They are not science fiction. Signals give us the permission space to land our ideas well. We look back to look forward, not to create some sort of nostalgia. We look back to make better choices. For example, this age of misinformation and fake news is nothing new. Sorry. When you go back in times to the 15th century and the invention of the printing press and Gutenberg, well, the church was pretty upset once Martin Luther was posting his thesis on church doors. The church controlled the media at the time. Wars and social disruption followed. How might an organization like Twitter have learned from something like this? We uncover patterns. So futurists use something called the 2-curve framework. The first curve is a descending curve, which is the way of things are done today. And the second curve is a rising curve, which is the way things will be done tomorrow. So, for example, these things actually overlap almost always. I'm just going to say they always overlap. They overlap, and the goal of the futurists is to use signals to map where you want to be on that rising curve. So for example, you might see that the proliferation of design thinking in the workplace is a sign that we are moving from this concept of industrial production, a declining curve, to a rising curve of social structured creation. Finally, we create community. It's been said that there are 3 ways we can really respond to the profound challenges that face us today. 1, we can download past patterns, basically sleepwalking through life, just do business as usual, whatever, it'll all work out. The second is adversity, to create an enemy that we have to overthrow, that we have to rally against, us against them. And the third approach is to make a commitment to collaboration. This is the only option for a futurist. In order to make things possible, the futurist needs a can-do spirit amongst a diverse set of thinkers. I use the word diversity quite intentionally. A diverse set of thinkers that may not agree, may not even, like each other, but they collaborate. So, I hope that this gives you something to bring back to your teams, and I appreciate the time that you gave me today. Thank you. But wait, there's more. Okay. So we'd like to dive deeper into designing for the future of cities. And here to chat with us is about technology and smarter cities is RJ Kumar, the president of ESC Partners. RJ, come on up. ESC Partners is a platinum sponsor for Customer Edge, and let's have a seat over here. How you doing today, RJ?
John, I'm doing all right, but I have to say this. It's been a hard day yesterday. I was led to believe I'm Gen X. Then somebody came up and said, no, you're not. So I tried it. I did try sending 2 thumbs up emojis and a heart to my both 12-year-old daughters, expecting they're gonna send me a heart back. Both of them called me immediately and asked me, are you okay? Which clearly tells me I am not Gen X. So it's hard, but I'm okay. I think I'm gonna test it again today. And if it works, I am Gen X.
Well, as an ambassador for the Gen X generation, I want to welcome you into the fold.
All right, whatever. Here we go. All right, I'll take that.
Although I'd really like to be a millennial. I don't even know what that is, but we'll get to that next time. Okay. RJ, thank you for coming with us. So tell us, you're obviously involved in a lot of digitization initiatives. What are some of the most relevant, most powerful digitization trends that you've seen impacting counties, cities, and municipalities?
Sure. So I think it all comes back to the same thing. Like, over the last 2 years, people used to talk about, hey, how is politics going on, right? Now every household you go to and you sit down and have a conversation, the first thing they talk about is COVID. I mean, before even you ask, hey, how are you? It's like, did you had COVID? And if you're not a cool person anymore, right? Seriously. But with COVID, what trend has changed is we all started working from home. We all started moving to areas of the country which allows us to have a better living. We all started moving to urban areas, urban cities, if you would. Started moving to smaller towns. Like I'm from Rochester, New York, those who you know. It's actually not Canada, it is in the United States. But the smaller towns now have more people walking in, right? But when people started moving that direction of building new houses, building new places, their homes, what they're not looking for is just, hey, I want a great experience from the utilities, but they want the best experience from the city they're gonna live with, right? So all the way from when I'm moving in, I wanna have my permitting and licensing done within a span of, a couple of hours, all the way through. Then I pick up the phone and call my utility. I want the customer service to pick up the phone and say, hey, RJ, looks like you got your house actually approved. And by the way, we can service you with water and electric. And let me send you a truck rolling for you to get your service started, right? That's the experience which people are looking for. And quote unquote is not smart city, it is a smarter city experience, because the experience of people, when they say about customer experience, starts with the first interaction which they have with the city. The citizens need to be served properly. From there on, which then leads into utilities, which then leads into everything else. So that's what the trend which we are seeing. People are moving towards connected experience, not just from the utility, but all the way from the beginning to the end of their life cycle with this township.
I see. Now, what's behind this sudden change? Was it COVID? What are you seeing behind the sudden change?
I think it's not just COVID. I think it's a demographic change. People, I mean, how many of us utilities have walk-in counters now? I mean, people don't want to go to an office, fill out a bunch of forms for doing permitting to licensing to utilities. They don't want to do it anymore. They want to digitalize that. When you say digitalizing, it's not like let's put a big fun portal out there or a mobile app out there. It's about a seamless data flow. Like over and over again, we heard that throughout the last 24 hours, we want to break the silos, right? So the moment we break those silos and have the data flow through from public works to utilities to asset management to OT, that's what people are experiencing. And I think it was coming. It was coming. We saw it coming. It's just that COVID kind of just accelerated everything for us.
I see. And these digitizations that you spoke of, how would you say they're impacting the state of utility operations?
Absolutely. So I think in a couple of ways. One, like I said, people want that seamless transition from initiating a new residence all the way through getting their service up and running. Two is people are spending more time around their own localities now. They are spending way more time. 2 years, people have spent a lot of time in their hometowns. That's when they're realizing that if I have a problem in my hometown, I want to quickly get to the city council's office. So I have a pothole in front of my house. How do I notify my city about that? Right? So I think that is impacting the utilities as well, because if I have a pothole and I now want to turn off the water service, me as a public work, not a utility person, as a public work office, want to notify seamlessly to my utility, hey, I'm going to take this place down. Can you please turn off the water for me? So that impact of digitalizing and also the data flow, seamless data flow, impacts the utilities quite often these days.
Got it. Tell us about the cloud. Why is cloud the go-to technology for smart city initiatives?
It's interesting. A lot of people came up and we were talking yesterday and said, so RJ, you guys are into cloud implementation. The first thing, I think the implementation and the cloud doesn't go together. There's nothing to implement in cloud. Like look at CCS, look at all the technologies we implement. There's nothing to implement there. It's cloud adoption projects. The cloud comes with the standards. Cloud comes with best practices which Oracle developed over years and years of experience with it. And what we are requesting utilities to do is adopt to those cloud features, right? So with that said, with you're doing an adoption into the cloud technologies, that takes away the timeline, right? Now we are not talking about a long 36-month journey of an implementation. A CCS implementation today for a net new customer is 12 to 14 months, versus it used to be 36 months and $36 million with an open checkbook, right? So I think that's changing. That perception is changing. Cloud also provided us the ability to connect the dot easily. For example, there are cities, City of Dothan, Alabama, Web Arubas of the world, where they're doing the same thing as a smarter city concept, connecting the dots. They deploy their Oracle financials, Oracle, human capital management, CIS. Those are deployed day one. These are already integrated. These are talking to each other. They're able to test their business process top to bottom day one. That changes the perspective, and I think cloud has changed that whole lookout.
That's great. Earlier we talked about floating cities and hurricanes. Tell me what your vision is for the future of smart cities.
I think the smart city goes back to the floating cities, right? Before the floating cities can be deployed, how does it impact a utility? how do we support that vision of a city to have a floating city, right? I mean, floating city is great, but with no water and power there, floating city is just going to float. So how do we as utilities support that vision? How do we support our constituents or citizens? I think that's important. And it goes back to the fundamentals of, can we connect the dots? If we don't connect the dots, we can have the best of the best technologies available, but it's just going to sit there.
Thank you so much for your time today, RJ.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
I do have the pleasure of bringing on our VP of Cybersecurity, Hafid Alabdalawi.